Hello, my name is Adam Williams. Thank you for joining us today on Retail Redeveloped. Today you will hear an in-depth interview on the booming business of craft beer with D9 Brewing owner and operator Andrew Durstewitz. Now, we talked about three interesting things today. One, making a big move to uptown Charlotte, right over there on Stonewall Street for D9. Very interesting move coming from the suburbs, establishing an uptown presence, and actually, believe it or not, the first brewery to open inside the 277 Loop. Very interesting. Number two, we talked a lot about the chemistry behind craft beer and how they really get into the science of making craft beer, which is probably more so than we think of it as we're kind of looking at the cooler at the grocery store. Number three, Andrew talked a lot about the overall view of the state of the industry today. If you're not already following us, please do so. Also, find us over on Instagram at AdamWilliamsCRE. Thanks again for tuning in to Retail Redeveloped. My name is Adam Williams, and I very much hope you enjoy today's episode. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on Retail Redeveloped. I am joined by Andrew Durstewitz, which I think I nailed the pronunciation there, but hopefully I'll get corrected if I did not. He is the founder and owner-operator of D9 Brewing here in the Charlotte metro area. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Andrew, do me a favor. Our listeners are kind of spread out a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind, just in case people have not had the opportunity to try D9 Brewing yet, would you tell everybody a little bit about kind of who you guys are and what you do and a little bit about just how you ended up in the seat you're sitting in today?
Yeah, absolutely. So myself and my two business partners, so we were started by two engineers and a doctor. And two of us spent, 15 to 20 years each in the IT industry. And, excuse me, after having seen a lot of emerging technologies and a lot of disruption in other markets, we saw an opportunity inside the craft beer industry, an industry that we loved. We've been lovers of craft beer for, well over a decade or so, to jump into this market. And we had started out as home brewers back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, we've been through the whole home brewing phase of craft beer. But as the market started to develop, we saw an opportunity to jump into this market. And in the 4 years since we've been in business, we've been able to grow our brand, to distribute beer from Philadelphia to Orlando. We have over 4,000 retailers on the East Coast, and we've been growing on an average of 95% year-over-year growth since the day we started.
Wow, that's incredible growth. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing just kind of in your industry right now. Obviously, total layman, craft beer, enjoyer, but certainly not business person, investor. Tell me a little bit about where you think kind of the state of the industry is right now.
Yeah, we're kind of in a really interesting phase of the industry. And the way I always put this back to technology terms, because originally I'm a tech nerd. So, I feel like we're in 1996, 1997 of the IT industry. So Microsoft and Google are finally, up and running, and they're becoming big companies. And that's your Sierra Nevada, New
Right.
Belgium.
Dogfish, all the big dogs.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of little guys out there still doing the real, craft work, and the consolidation hasn't yet fully swung in effect. So there's this really interesting effect that, the craft industry has to it. And it's this desire to know where your food is coming from. That's all. The entire localism is based on this. But you want to be able to go down the road and pick up, a coffee or a meal or, a beer from somebody that but yet, these bigger organizations, they're trying to distribute over large areas. So where we kind of are in the market is figuring out the right mixture between local focus and regional or national focus.
So how do you guys reconcile that? Because I agree 100%. I mean, I love the kind of local movement, local activism, whatever you want to call it. I love that trend. But you guys are already pretty much all over the East Coast. So how
Right.
what is local? Is it more of a yearning for craft, and you're sticking it to the big guys, the macros? Is it truly a local following? What do you think it really is?
I've always believed that local was a concept created because large corporations did not do good with the trust that they were given for the products they were creating. So what I mean is, when corporations really got a hold of some of the big products that you came to love back in the 90s and 2000s, once they had the market share, they just drove down cost and destroyed the products. So they took it away from everybody. So inevitably, there was going to be a backlash to craft, which is, your craft foods, your craft cocktails, your craft drinks, and that you really wanted to know who made your product, because there was no trust left in the community and the market. So localism, in my opinion, is a lot more to do with trust, craft, unique experiences, where people want to see something done different. None of us want to be cookie cutter anymore. There's actually a great book on this called Predictably Irrational, where we all believe that we are completely original, but the problem is that you are completely predictable at the same time, because we all follow a similar set of trends. But right now, what we want is to know that we can have a unique experience tailored to us.
Is that by the same guy that wrote Fooled by Randomness?
Maybe. It sounds like something he would write.
What was the author's name? Do you remember his name?
I don't remember it offhand.
Well, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
You guys, in 4 years, which is a blink of an eye in business world, since you guys started D9 and Cornelius, you're already expanding to a prime location in Uptown. And frankly, I can't believe it's taken this long for a craft brewery to plant a flag in Uptown Charlotte. I feel like it's just an absolute glaring, need in the market and hole in the market. What do you think this means for the future of D9, and what have you kind of seen in your local market, your kind of Huntersville, Cornelius market? Are people excited for you to expand, or is there a little bit of backlash, like, oh man, this is our local place, and now you're going to the big city? What is the feeling been on the street?
Yeah, it's been an interesting process. We've had a lot of start stops with figuring out how to expand, because I didn't want to expand our company in an unoriginal way. We've kind of coined, that we're an unquestionably original brewery. So, going into Charlotte, I didn't want to just put another location, or what I call yet another damn brewery. I wanted to create a unique experience that I just hadn't seen before. So when we looked at the space, we walked around it for about 2 days, and we're trying to figure out, well, what do we do with this? What's unique about this? I mean, yeah, I could put tanks in there, but what does that matter anymore? There's plenty of craft locations. What is a unique experience that the people in the local community and the local neighborhoods would actually enjoy, on top of the product that we create? So we were looking at the space, and we said, what if we did an outdoor brewery? We're like, that's an insane idea. Why would we do an outdoor brewery? It's like, well, because the Charlotte metro area is an outdoor hangout city. In this area, if you don't have an outdoor space, you're kind of dead. It's pretty difficult here. So we started looking at it and said, well, why don't we do it with a concert pavilion and an outdoor beer garden? So we were able to kind of create an experience that got us excited. And, that's kind of the first test. So then we kind of put it out to the market. Well, more than that, a lot of local newspapers found out about it and were calling me, telling me that they were going to release the info with or without me. So I was kind of forced to do it.
If you pull any sort of permit, man, you are asking for it.
Yeah, I've learned about project names, code names, not incorporating the business too early. Yeah, I've learned all these things in the last 6 months.
Yeah, those are lessons you only need to learn once, though.
Yep. So we got a lot of attention for that, and I think it resonated with people. A lot of Charlotte people said, oh, thank God you guys are one of my favorite breweries, but I can't get up that crazy highway to come see you.
Oh, God, no. Unless you're sending a helicopter for us.
Yeah, I know, right? And the thing is that just geographically, people only travel within 15 minutes of their home typically, right? And so 15 minutes in the city of Charlotte is 15 minutes of Charlotte driving, which doesn't get you out of the city anymore. It used to about 2 decades ago, not anymore.
Yeah, 15 minutes doesn't mean the same thing.
Exactly. So putting that down there, seemed to make a lot of sense to the Charlotte people. And then the only feedback I got from Lake Norman that was even slightly negative was they were worried we were moving. And I said, no, we're not moving. We're keeping our Lake Norman place.
Keep the mothership, right?
Yeah, we're just adding another place. And they said, oh, so we're going from Lake Norman to Charlotte. So Lake Norman gets, a win here. And I'm like, take whatever you want.
Yeah, read that however you want.
Yeah, read that however you want.
and we'll do a whole separate podcast just based on toll roads, so it'll get everybody up in arms, and somebody will try to burn down my office. As a smaller brand, you guys are obviously when compared to the macros that everybody's familiar with, and even some of the bigger micros, you guys are still a small brand. Because of that, because of kind of the natural bootstrap nature of startups and new brands, what have you found to be the hardest part of expansion?
The hardest part of expansion in a highly dense market, highly disrupted market like this is awareness. How do you get top of mind with distributors, with retailers, and with consumers? And with our background in disrupted industries, I feel like we've been able to do a good job at constantly bringing value to the market, being able to bring our sour beers, which are a technically very difficult style of beer to produce, and then being able to bring what I call vertically integrated beers, where we have these rotational series that release a beer every, 4 months, which actually results, if you look at all of our series, in 2 brand new D9 beers sent fully through our distribution network every month. So
and
2 new beers a month.
Named?
So we have 4 rotational series. There's Sistema Natura, Defying Gravity, Wild Things, and then Confectioners. And then we have 3 seasonals, and the seasonals are Pinch of Salt, Americana, and Tropiculture. So with the way that they're staggered throughout the year, it's set up to have 2 beer releases, full beer releases in package per month. But where did we get the ability to do that? Well, coming from technology, we have lean, agile, Six Sigma, Scrum, training for rapid development. So we've instilled that in this company. And that's one thing I've noticed that is a little bit of a competitive edge for us, is that we actually can bring that much product to bear that fast, because consumers are looking for new and different experiences from breweries who they trust.
So talk to me a little bit, expound on that, unpack that a little bit more. Like, obviously there are, 30 some odd breweries in Charlotte taking up, I think it's flirting with 500,000 square feet. How else would you guys say that you guys are different, and how do you get that across to just Joe Blow walking into, the grocery store or the bottle shop to grab a 6-pack?
What we start with our product development side is, so in my earlier life, I spent 10 years in a human capital research company writing research software, and 2 of those years was in cognitive research. Cognitive research is a fascinating field because it's thinking about how people think about things. It'll blow your mind if you ever spend a little time there. But we really start with the perspective of, well, what are people looking for? What is a gap that we see in the market, whether from an artistic standpoint, visual art, from a packaging standpoint, from a liquid standpoint? How do we take people on a journey, on an experience, and not just do, liquid only, and not put the whole experience with it? I think that's what's kept D9 resonating with people, is because we're constantly taking people on a journey. Think of our Defying Gravity series, not only a technically very difficult series to produce because it's high gravity sours, which have to go through 3 fermentations to get there, and they're unblended, which is very difficult. But it's also, if you look at the art, it's a journey. It went from Cape Canaveral to escape velocity to, it's a journey through the universe, and we're getting to actually teach people about some really funny things in space. Like the last one we just did was the Kuiper Belt. And the Kuiper belt is a meteor style belt that sits at the edge of our solar system.
Yeah, and obviously. Everybody knows that, obviously.
Yeah. We did a beer called L1 Gate, and I had a lot of people ask, well, what is L1 Gate? Well, it stands for Lagrangian 1, and the Lagrangian 1 is when two orbits touch each other, and that's how you move from one planet to another in space. And we actually put some of this stuff on the boxes, and I get a lot of people sending us messages like, you're actually teaching me something. And it's like, yeah, you're drinking at the same time. It's awesome.
That's a win-win. That's the ultimate win-win. So,
yep.
So talk to me about, you guys have a scientific method where you add microflora at different stages to enhance and create different flavor profiles.
Yep.
Now, dumb this down, but explain to me how it works. Dumb it way down.
Yeah. So, all right, good question. So, everybody knows, beer has alcohol in it, and alcohol is made from yeast, which is Saccharomyces. Well, there are a lot of other organisms, and Saccharomyces is just this huge family of organisms. So there's two others that are predominant in the beer world. One is called Brettanomyces, and another one is called Lactobacillus. Then there's also Pediococcus and a couple others that we don't use as much, or at least D9 doesn't use. Well, when we went out to the beer industry and we're trying to figure out what D9's unique perspective was going to be, you really start having to think about, well, how do the flavor compounds come to exist? Well, if everybody has the same set of ingredients, then how do you be unique with the same set of ingredients that anybody else in the industry has? Well, this goes back to an age-old adage that you'll hear a lot of brewers say, is that brewers don't make beer, brewers make wort. Yeast makes beer. So when we sat down and thought about it, like, well, we need some unique organisms then. So we went out to the world around us, and we harvested our own microflora. And microflora is just a all-encompassing term for microorganisms, right? So we found our own Lactobacillus, our own Brettanomyces, our own Saccharomyces, and then we started figuring out how they could work together, where they like to work together, where they don't like to work together, because these organisms in nature want to thrive on their own. They don't want other organisms in their business. So we had to teach, or actually we had to learn how to put these organisms into a tank of beer together so that they could create flavors that we couldn't create through a normal brewing process. So you have to stack these organisms one on top of another, at specific times with specific sugars, because some eat short chain sugars, some eat long chain sugars. So it's a bit complicated, and I flunked biology in school, so I've had to learn this through brute force. But it's been fun. It's a lot of the flavor components that we've been able to make have come from the unique microflora processes that we've created.
That's you lost me a long way ago, Andrew. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to hit you. You've already been really generous with your time, and I know you have a busy schedule today. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions. So just like right off the top of your head, what's
Sure.
your favorite beer right now? And it can't be one of yours.
I've always had one answer to this. It's New Belgium Lafayette, man. That's the beer that converted me to the craft industry. It's what made me love sour beer. I still love that beer to the day, as long as you get it like direct from the facility in Fort Collins. I mean, it's amazing.
So they don't make it on the East Coast. You have to get it from the Colorado version.
Yeah, so they do ship it here, but when it's fresh, like right out of the fooders, like it's amazing.
All right, who is impressing you right now in your industry?
On a small scale and local scale, I always have been looking at High Branch and King Canary. I think both of those guys in the Charlotte metro area are doing phenomenal things. I love those guys personally. I love the businesses they're creating, the community that they're creating. I think that's what our whole industry has to be about.
And where are they?
King Canary is in Mooresville, and High Branch is in Concord.
Yeah, I've actually heard a lot of people talking about High Branch lately. Mm-hmm. And what is your favorite style of beers that you guys make? You personally?
For me, it's the mixed microflora sours. So like our Sistema Natura sours are what I live for. IPAs are kind of a little bit lower on the scale for me, being a sour guy. But yeah, our sours, I love them.
So let me ask you this. So you love the sours, but what is your kind of Rainmaker top seller?
It still is our IPA, of course. But our Brewer's Day Off, which is our cucumber melon goza that won a medal at the Great American Beer Festival last year, is starting to catch up. So we may end up with, in the next 12 months, having a sour base, essentially a light sour beer, be in our top one or two beers sellers for our company.
What is it about the sour beers that you think resonates with kind of the beer nerd culture? Because obviously, you go to, just trying to think of like a local brewery that's really close to Uptown. Like you go to Sycamore, I mean, it's just, IPAs for days and people seem to like that. But then if you go to people that are trying to trying to be a little bit more experimental, like you guys, like Divine Barrel and Wooden Robot. I mean, they're pushing sours in a big way. What is it about sours that seems to attract kind of the beer nerd culture?
Well, one is rarity. The style is extremely hard to get right because it's not just about the brewing process. It actually, I would argue that sour beer has more to do with your fermentation process than it does the brewing process. So getting that right and getting the right controls and the right mixture of organisms in there is very, very, very difficult. The other thing, too, is that sours, I think they connect with more people than IPAs do. It's just that IPAs have had a longer shot at the market. For me, I like an IPA, but I don't like overwhelming amounts of hops. This whole, hazy, juicy idea that's kind of kicked off is this idea of bringing the bitterness down on IPAs and making them more fruity. Well, that's because people are getting tired of being burnt out on bitterness. What sour has kind of done is it's basically saying, hey, there's another predominant flavor on your palate that we can push here. And it actually has intersections with wine and other types of drinks. So I think we're picking up a broader base of people, but we've had to get past some of the negative connotations to sour beer. I still remember the first time I offered a guy a sour beer and he goes, I don't know what that is, but your beer went bad. And it's like, yeah, okay. Well, that's going to be a struggle to get over.
That's true. You don't have to go too far outside of Huntersville and Cornelius to hear that kind of stuff. I like it. I spent a lot of time up at a kart track up in Mooresville, and I love it up there.
Yep.
Well, Andrew, you've been so great, so generous with your time, and I'm very grateful for it. I can't wait to see you guys get open. Would you take a second and tell people how they can connect with you, whether it be you personally or the brand, where they can find your beer? Just tell people how to connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, we're located in Cornelius, North Carolina. That's our headquarters. We do sell beer in over 4,000 retailers on the East Coast. So just stop into your local beer shop or Harris Teeter or Kroger, depending on where you are. And, we should be there in the cold sets. And always try to take a drive up to Lake Norman when you have a chance, because, that's where we got started. That's where you could see the craft in play and how we've had to duct tape things together over the last 4 years. And, come check us out.
And and I know this is a loaded question, any ideas on opening date for your Uptown location? So, urban babies like me who don't like getting out of their bubble can come experience your beer.
Yeah, we're still hoping before winter. It was supposed to be a lot sooner than that, but the city of Charlotte has had other plans for dealing with our permits. But we are fully cleared on our permits finally, and it should only be about a 60-day construction. So I'm hoping soon.
Shout out to Charlotte Mecklenburg for being super pro-business and easy to get along with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Says no one who's in the middle of the permitting process.
Yeah, it's just I was going to choose no comment because I'm still in the permitting process, and I don't want it to slow down even further.
Hey, until you have that CO in your hands and that green sheet, man, you were never over. So yes. I wish you the best of luck. And cannot wait for there to be an Uptown brewery. It's like I said, it's I think, in my opinion, it was a massive hole in the Uptown market, and it's very interesting in Uptown right now because South End, people that are listening that are local Charlotteans, South End is such a massive force, and everybody wants to be there right now. That I was thrilled to see a group like you going uptown, even though you're kind of on that cusp, that South End uptown line. I think you guys are going to hit it out of the park.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew.